Welcome to the Deadology Podcast from Pencil Hill Studio, New Paltz, New York. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. Today is November 19th, 2023, and this, episode 16 of the podcast, will feature a show from the Philadelphia Spectrum on August 30th, 1980. This is another underrated gem. This is Underrated Gems, Volume 2. Now, why is this particular show considered an underrated gem, you might ask? For one thing, just using dead bass as kind of like a common denominator on how popular shows were. For 1980, the year 1980, the October 31st Radio City show was rated the best by the people who responded in that poll, tapers and fans of the band. Got 64 votes. The second best show, as chosen in this poll, was from Lewiston, Maine on September 6th. That's a great show, as is the Halloween show from Radio City. That particular show got 39 votes. Now, this August 30th show from the Philadelphia Spectrum only got 2 votes. It was at the bottom of the list for 1980. And I'm assuming this poll was taken around 1995. And there's probably a very good reason for why it didn't score higher in the poll. At that point, I think all that was circulating from this particular show was mediocre to bad audience recordings of the show. And I remember in 1982, this is my friend's first show. He brought me we were in his Coupe de Ville doing bong hits in a parking lot, listening to this tape. And it was a tough tape to listen to. But the Althea and Jack Straw from this show were so hot. It was such an exciting tape to hear, even though the quality wasn't there. And right away, it's always been a favorite tape of mine for that reason, just because the guitar playing just stood out from this bad recording. And for me, I'm not sure the exact time these soundboards became available. I think the set 2 was available before set 1. But I first came across a soundboard of this in the early 2000s. And to me, that was one of the great days of my collecting life, being able to hear this, get a CD of it in crisp soundboard quality. And then it even went up higher, in my opinion, because this entire first set is just loaded with greatest ever versions. And that's what definitely makes this an underrated jam. Just comparing it to the Halloween show at Radio City, that one was special for all the right reasons. You know, it was broadcast. You had the acoustic set. It's Halloween. It's in the small Radio City music hall. But this Philly show, the electric set blows that away. So, glad to be talking about this one as a gem. Before we dive into the music and samples of some of the great jams by the Dead that night, here's a little history on the Philadelphia Spectrum. On the East Coast, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, the Grateful Dead played there 53 times, the most of any venue on the East Coast. Madison Square Garden was second with 52. Now, which one has a richer history as far as the Grateful Dead goes? Without question, it's the Philadelphia Spectrum, as much as I like to say the Mecca, Madison Square Garden. Saw several great shows in Madison Square Garden, but the reason Philadelphia definitely has the edge, the Grateful Dead played there a lot earlier during a lot of their better years. They played their first show there at a Quaker City Rock Festival, December 6, 1968. Their second show there, which was one of their first big ones in an indoor sports arena, in a major indoor sports arena, was at the Philly Spectrum, September 21st, 1972. It's a show immortalized on the Dick's Pick series. Spectacular show. They played there 3 times in 73. They played a great show there in 77 on April 22nd. That might be a future candidate for underrated gems, because it's the May 77 shows rightfully are revered. But that's kind of why this one sneaks in there a little bit. The April 22nd Philly show, really a tremendous show, pretty close to the best of the May runs. So that's a great show. My April 6, 1982 is one of the first shows I saw in the Philly Spectrum, night of a major blizzard in New York State in April, and we made it to the show, and the Dead played a classic second set, Shakedown Sailor, Saint Terrapin, Drum Space, Truck Another One, Morning Dew, Sugar Mag, Baby Blue, Encore. So yeah, I have a tight connection to the Philadelphia Spectrum, and the Dead played there 26 times before 1987, while they had only played Madison Square Garden 11 times up to that point. So that's why I say the Dead's history in the Philadelphia Spectrum is much richer. And, Philadelphia Spectrum has that Madison Square Garden-like energy, just a crazy East Coast energy, which is unbeatable for bringing the best out of the Dead. It was always such a cool thing to pull into that parking lot right by Broad Street. There was just something about a show in that Spectrum that was magical. And finally, before diving into the show, I just want to put this in context as to where the Grateful Dead were on this summer tour in 1980. And their summer tour, this must have been Labor Day weekend, August 30th. They played the Spectrum August 29th, a very hot second set that night. Let It Grow in the second set, a smoking going down the road. And then you got this show on the 30th. On the 31st, they were in the Cap Center, Landover, Maryland. And that is just a awesome second set. The Comes a Time Truckin' is crazy on that. It's my favorite version of Comes a Time, and as good a truckin' jam as you'll hear from the 1980s. That very well could have fit into this underrated gem volume 2 as well. But August 31st, I would definitely check that out, Cap Center. And then a more famous show, the next, after a night off, Rochester War Memorial, the Ico, Morning Dew, Sugar Mag, after drums at that show. And yeah, I think a lot of people know about that particular concert. So this is really a historic 3-night run in 1980. Definitely the best one from 1980. And let's jump in. Saturday night, the Spectrum in Philadelphia, and the crowd is psyched. Band comes out and does something historic right away to kick the evening off. They open with Feel Like a Stranger. Now, Feel Like Stranger is a new song from Go to Heaven, and they had played it 25 times prior to this night, never in the opening spot. If ever a song seemed like it was written to be an opener for a show, it's Feel Like a Stranger. But it's just an amazing little fact that the Grateful Dead waited till their 26th performance till they put it in that opening slot. And wow, did they do justice to it. This is by far the best version of Feel Like a Stranger up to this point. And, Bob's singing great. Everything's rolling along. There's like a great energy from the band, from the crowd. And what Garcia does with this jam is ridiculous. Let's listen to the ending of this Feel Like a Stranger to open the set for the first time in Grateful Dead history. What a great jam there from the Grateful Dead. You could tell Garcia's on fire right from the get-go. Yeah, such that little repetitive lick he loves doing. He finds a nice groove, repeats it, and it gets hotter and hotter and more interesting for the audience. Amazing how he does that. I have an example of that later in the show during Fire on the Mountain, where he does something similar. But definitely one of the great Feel Like a Stranger's, and from this point forward, Feel Like a Stranger found its home as a show opener. This is, once again, it was the 26th time it was played, the first time it ever opened the show. So we move on to the second song of the night, Peggy-O. Pretty Peggy-O comes stepping down the stairs. And this is one of the incredible things about this show. And also, Jerry does Friend of the Devil with his next selection in the fourth slot. They are absolutely, the band is on fire, just crunching it during the instrumentals. But yet during this Peggy-O, Jerry's singing as sweet as could be. It almost defies reality how they go from this beautiful, lush version into this power-packed jam in Peggy-O. But that was the motif here, just the great, especially in this first set. The Dead just came out with power every song, and really unlike any other set, because I think every version in this set just about is up there, as far as looking at a greatest version ever, at least in the contention for it. In the third spot, Cassidy. And once again, the band is just absolutely ripping and firing here. Brent sounds great on this night. Once again, him and Jerry just work great chasing each other on the leads. And this, I think, is the best version of Cassidy up to this point. In 1980, it's just so power-packed and the jamming's fiery. But Cassidy would go on to get a kind of an extended jam as we move into the 80s, and 1984, 1985. They kind of built a little bridge in the jam, which helped it develop even hotter versions, like the Brendan Byrne one from November 10th, 1985, which I think is the best Cassidy. That one's on the Golden Road box set. But up to this point, this was probably the best Cassidy they ever played, as far as the instrumental is concerned. In the fourth spot, great Friend of the Devil. So just everything is rolling at this show. Beautiful song selection, and the band in a peak 10 state, like right out of the gate. Fifth song, New Minglewood Blues. And, I hadn't even noticed how hot this was until recently. I was telling a friend about this show maybe a year or two ago. He called me back, and of all the songs, he was like, wow, what a hot Minglewood. And I went back and listened. I was like, there's the wow factor in every instrumental from this first set from Philly. So New Minglewood Blues, number 5. And just when you think the set's developing a kind of typical song feel where you can almost predict what's going to be next, boom, they hit you with the Cold Rain and Snow. And when they drop, Cold Rain is always such a desirable song to see. But when they drop it like in the middle of a set and you're not expecting it, it always brings much joy to the crowd. Once again, Jerry's singing very strong. They were such an amazing performance shape at this particular time in the 1980 tour. So we get a very hot, Cold Rain played with a lot of authority, a lot of Broad Street bully in there. Just to get out of my the Grateful Dead. We're kicking ass and taking names, as they say. Then we go to Looks Like Rain in the seventh slot here, and a nice version. This is probably the only one which I wouldn't consider a greatest ever version, but Garcia, once again, is just all over it, cooking. Pretty good. Looks Like Rain. Definitely nothing wrong with it. It just didn't have this huge standout feature, but Garcia's licks are pretty good here. And then Brent gets in his new song, Easy to Love You. And, for me, it's a decent song. I don't go nuts over this song, new tune off Go to Heaven. But on this night, they are playing everything with conviction. And this is definitely the best Easy to Love You I've ever heard. So we're at this point where just this incredible show is evolving. And the Dead saved the best for the last two songs. Maybe the most conclusive ending they ever had to a first set. And to look at this show on paper, you would never guess how great it is just looking at it on paper. This is why it's an underrated gem, because this is one you actually have to listen to. In the ninth slot, the Grateful Dead played Althea. They played Althea a lot in 1980. They played it often back to back at consecutive shows. I think they played it the night before in Philly, and they would play it in Rochester. And there's a lot of great versions from 1980. Probably the most famous Althea. Well, I shouldn't say probably. This is the most famous Althea. Al Franken, Senator Deadhead, talks about how much he loves his version, and it's generally acknowledged as the best Althea. May 16th, 1980, Nassau Coliseum. It's a damn good one. I remember that was one of the first bootleg CDs I got in the late, I think it was in the late 90s, maybe mid 90s. Got a bootleg CD of that show, and I thought and it was such a great Althea. And that's probably why it's one of the reasons it's rated as the greatest Althea, because the soundboard recording of it has always existed, and I do rate that as the second best Althea. And I think this also may have been the Althea where John Mayer got into the Grateful Dead. He heard that May 16th Althea, and it's a brilliant one. But there is one better. It's this one from the Philly Spectrum on August 30th in the ninth slot. Just when this space is getting hot, when Jerry hits that part, he just explodes with a great jam. And then the heat that they bring to the final solo is unmatched in any Althea jam. And I got a few other segments I'm going to play for you here on the Deadology podcast. But if you want to hear the whole August 30th Althea, it's on my YouTube page, Positively Garcia. You could just type in Grateful Dead 83080 Althea. Or obviously there's so many different ways of accessing your Grateful Dead. But if you haven't respected that as the best Althea, I'm not saying obviously the May 16 one could be as good. It's just a matter of taste. But this is definitely a standout, and I think you'll agree it's one of the best. So Althea in the ninth spot. We got one song to go, and there's nothing like a Jack Straw to end the first set. Straw is one of the beloved openers. Probably got me more excited to open a show than any other song. You'd always be rooting for the Jack Straw opener. But when they broke it out at the end of the set, the band's just warmed up, and so many great versions of Straw happened at the end of the first set. To throw out one at you, obviously the Carrier Dome, October 20th, 1984, just a ridiculous version, probably the best ever. But this one from the Philly Spectrum, which I don't think is as revered, is up there. For me, it's like a top 3 Straw. The band is just ripping with such confidence, and Garcia shredding. I'm going to play this solo for you, and he's just, it's going places where no Straw goes. Garcia's picking, and the band's playing furiously, and then Garcia kind of realizes the moment. He grabs the moment, and I don't know what he actually did when he was on stage that night, but it sounds like he steps up to the stage and just says, "Check this out," and just it does these licks that are beyond anything you could have imagined before hearing it. And then the band comes in with the crunching chord play, which is typical for Jack Straw, but man, they are thundering it. They had that power at this point of the tour. The shows before and after, they were just crunching everything. And what a great Jack Straw. The singing, they come in perfectly. Everything about this Straw is just powerhouse. But my words can't do it any justice, so here is the entire final jam of the 83080 Jack Straw to end set 1 in the Spectrum. how sweet it is to hear that Jack Straw on soundboard, the amazing 830-80 Straw from the Spectrum. I can't tell you how many years I had to listen to a subpar audience tape of that, but it was worth the listen, man, because that between that and the Althea, just such incredible guitar work and just incredible synergy from the Grateful Dead on this Saturday night in Philadelphia. So that's the first set. I'm not going to spend as much time on set 2. It's not as brilliant as that first set, but wow, there are some incredible moments from the second set, which kicks off with the Scarlet Begonias into Fire on the Mountain. And they kind of pick up where it's almost as, if you listen to this, it's almost as if they didn't take a break. They got the same attack mode going for set 2. Very good Scarlet. Probably if we're looking at versions from 1980, this is definitely one of the better ones. But Scarlet Fire went through some weird phases, and starting in 1980 up to 1979, they were extending versions, reaching over a half hour, and it really varied a lot. Between the years 80 and 82, they kind of tapered it down, did a tighter Scarlet Fire. In other band terms, they're playing forever here, but they did a lot of Scarlet Fires that were under 20 minutes in 1980, 81, 82. This one, I'm looking at the numbers right now, 9:39 Scarlet, 10:15 Fire. So yeah, you're right at that 20-minute point. But this is just smoking, one of the better ones that could be 20 minutes. And I have a couple samples from the Fire on the Mountain because I wouldn't put this up there as like in a top 10 category, anything for the Scarlet Fire, but there's just such unique playing from Garcia in this Fire on the Mountain. And by the way, just to point out a couple other good ones from this era, which are good. Nicholas Merriweather is a huge proponent of the Fox Theater Scarlet Fire. I believe the date on that is October 30th, and that is a great one. I hear that a lot on the Grateful Dead channel. They really go overboard on that one. That's definitely the best one in 1980. The Philly one might be number 2. And in October 1981, Barcelona, a great Scarlet Fire, all the nuance and hot playing you want to hear. But let's get back to this Fire in the Mountain from Philly. So we're in the Fire in the Mountain. Things are ripping along pretty good, and then you hit solo 2. And Jerry just comes up with this simple lick, beautiful, fun Fire on the Mountain lick, plays it again, and it's just so, how does he do it? How does he play the same lick and maybe just vary it slightly? And instead of being thought of as repetitive, you're like, what a genius this guy is. And then you listen to Brent's picking up on it. He's like, yeah, what a great lick. And pretty soon him and Brent are in unison playing this lick. It's so simple, but it's like laugh out loud hot. So check out this is the second solo from that Fire on the Mountain. The one and only incomparable Jerry Garcia. Nobody can milk a lick like him. That's incredible stuff there. And then we go from the simplicity of repetitive lick playing, although there's something brilliant about it, even though it's simplistic. In solo 2, we're going to go to solo 3, and the band just crushes it, and Jerry's speed playing here. And this is one of the cool final outro jams of any Fire. I think of like the Cornell one definitely being the best final solo, but this is pretty damn cool. It's about as hot as a outro solo for Fire gets. So here we go, the third solo, the third instrumental from the August 30th Spectrum Fire on the Mountain. Red City, molten lava shooting out of that last Fire on the Mountain instrumental. Impressive stuff to start off the second set, August 30th in the Spectrum. Continuing on, they break out one of their new blues covers, CC Rider. They kind of developed into a CC Rider one night, Red Rooster the other night routine around this time period for a couple of years. Very hot. Garcia's solo is great here. Bob's singing, and Phil's just blowing the Spectrum apart all night. Brent Midland, keyboards. The drummers are pounding it out, man. Just what a powerful performance. And the first half of this second set is, even though it doesn't have that greatest version halo effect of the opening set, a lot of good stuff here in the same vein as the first set. A nice ramble on Rose. Once again, Jerry singing it sweet, great guitar solo. And to end a really impressive pre-drums, you get the Estimated Prophet Eyes of the World combo, and it checks in at an impressive 24 minutes long. The Eyes is a little quick in tempo, but just the playing is there. A lot, and also in the Estimated is some incredible jamming at the end of that. So you get, I mean, that's a beautiful 6-song pre-drums: Scarlet Fire, CC Rider, Ramble on Rose, Estimated Eyes of the World, and then we hit drums. And at this point, if the Dead would have came out and did something like they did in Rochester, like they did after drums there, Nyko, Morning Dew, Sugar Magnolia, this would have went down as one of the greatest shows ever. But unfortunately, things tailed off. It seems like Jerry got a little tired, and who can't blame him? Notes per minute, there's like no show that's coming off with if there was a barometer or an instrument that could that could count notes per minute played. This Spectrum show up to this point is just off the charts. Garcia was killing it all night. But after drum space, it takes a nosedive. You got the Do Not Fade Away, Out of Space, decent version, pretty good, but just a typical. And at this point in this show, typical is like a downfall. So it's not about a 7-8 minute Not Fade Away. Let me check. I got the numbers right. 8 minute Not Fade Away, and then it goes into Black Peter, which is the official funeral for this second set. And I'm not saying that as an anti-Black Peter person, because I love Black Peter. Such a great song, very emotional. Love hearing it, love singing along with it. but just the pace really slows down. And for the first time of the night, it just seems like the band is just like, trying to catch their breath. And at the end of Black Peter, there's barely a Garcia guitar solo either. So they were either up against a curfew or they had just run out of energy, which is completely understandable at this point in the show. Then they break into Sugar Mag. And it seems like it's almost going to regain and be a great Sugar Magnolia. When they break into the jam, Garcia is all over it like no Sugar Magnolia. It comes out of the gate so ripping, and it's a pretty hot Sugar Magnolia. Definitely good, but it just doesn't have the length of a great Sugar Magnolia. In fact, I'm looking at the number right now, and the Sugar Magnolia is 535 and the Sunshine Daydream 250, but for a Sugar Magnolia it's pretty short. If they would have had another minute or 90 seconds to build on the Sugar Magnolia, it could have been a great one, because they really came at it very storming. It was, it started off great and it was satisfying in the moment, but just short. And then hey, it's Saturday night, one more Saturday night, they split. But yeah, what a huge show this was. Even though it tails off at the end there. One of my best friends who helped get me into the Grateful Dead, a famous taper, Doug, this was his first show and he was so moved by it. So in a way, this is a show that changed my life too. Just from the fact that it got him into it. It got so many people. Every Grateful Dead show is a life changer. There's always people that are getting on the bus or see the light, hundreds, thousands at every single show. But this one must have really hit home, because just the playing of all these great tunes was so off the hook for the first 80% of the show. Definitely a classic in the Philly spectrum, which makes it an underrated gem, volume 2 in the series. And that wraps up episode 16 of the Deadology podcast. Thanks for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll be back next week. Not sure exactly what the topic is right now, but coming back strong with some more hot Grateful Dead. If you want to reach out to me, my email, catfishgarcia82@yahoo.com. My books are available on Amazon, Howard F. Weiner, and tangledupintunes.com is my website. Once again, thanks for listening. Happy holidays. Peace out.